Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cocktail Hour Fantasy Football Podcast presented by the Face Off Sports Network. I am happy to be joined by Jay Graff this morning, and he brought on another guest as well today, his 14-month-old child, who might be chiming in as well, giving some fantasy football advice as well. How you doing, my friend?
Doing well. It's a weird Saturday. I'm in the Northeast, and it's been 90 for the last few days, and then today it's 50. So,
I'm in Colorado. Oh, I told you we'd see some fantasy advice. So that's probably letting us know how his day is going. Perfect.
Now he was telling me, Dad, that was a stupid intro.
Tell us about, hey, the weather out here in Colorado is absolutely crazy too. We have it's like been raining for 30 days straight, and now it's going to be raining for another 30 days straight. The driest place in the world. So not the driest, but it's up there. But we'll get into it today. He's very excited to get started. I can very tell. So we're going to talk about top 24 Dynasty quarterbacks today. I have my sleeper board up here, mock draft kind of style, just to give a visual. I know some listeners, I wasn't providing the visuals before, and I know that's tough, especially if you were jumping in the middle of a broadcast. So starting off, no surprise for anyone here on the top 24 Dynasty fantasy football quarterbacks, that is going to be Patrick Mahomes. And I doubt you're going to give any criticism of that because it seems to be fairly contested. He's the best quarterback in the NFL. He showed that last season with those limited weapons, being able to elevate that offense. Still, he's not my quarterback one for 2023. I think Jalen Hurts is in a better situation. I could even understand putting players like Lamar Jackson or even Josh Allen in front of him, but he has such a safe for the foreseeable future. What are your feelings on Patrick Mahomes in that first spot?
Yeah, no, I completely agree, actually. He is what I feel is as close to wide receiver proof as you can get. And it's interesting. I was listening to a podcast the other day. I can't remember which one, but they were talking about how Jalen Hurts should be the 101 in all formats, redraft, fantasy, or dynasty, what have you. And yesterday I was in a startup, and for the first time ever, I was at 102. For the first time ever, I saw Jalen Hurts go 101, and I grabbed Patrick Mahomes at 102. I couldn't agree more. Pat Mahomes is so safe. I've heard people talking about, what's going to happen when now Bieniemy's gone, he's in Washington. What's going to happen with, when Reed finally someday disappears, when he retires, and what Kelsey does, when he retires. I don't really think it's going to matter. I think Mahomes is a safe bet at 101 or 102 if that happens in your league.
You might have been listening to my friends over at Player Profiler.
I think it was actually.
Yeah, you're probably listening to Matt Kelly because he was. Yeah. He's Matt Kelly, the Podfather. He, my hero in this business. He's fantastic, and he was. You're right, giving a breakdown on why he believes Jalen Hurts. He's my boss over there, so he believes Jalen Hurts is the Dynasty quarterback one. I don't agree with that, especially as a Kansas City Chief fan. He doesn't agree with it either, your son, and he is absolutely right about that. Jalen Hurts, it's a good lead-in, though. He is my dynasty quarterback, too. I mean, it is a perfect situation for the next few years. We're talking about dynasty is in 3-year windows is what I like to look at it. So Jalen Hurts, let's look at it. I mean, he has A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert all pretty much tied to him through this 3-year window. He has one of the safest contracts in the NFL. He's pretty much guaranteed through 3, maybe even 4 seasons here. So, I mean, Jalen Hurts is in an excellent position to produce, and he's my quarterback 1 for 2023, although he's my quarterback 2 for dynasty purposes. And it sounds like you probably agree with that as well.
Yeah, I do. Jalen Hurts is actually a somewhat sensitive subject for me. In my home league last offseason, was a little bit hasty and traded him away. I didn't trade him away for peanuts. I did get Deshaun Watson back, but I'm hoping that can pan out. But anyway, yeah. Not only the weapons he has available to him, but he's also got arguably the best offensive line in the league, protecting him. They've got 3 running backs now that are pretty solid. I like, Swift, Penny, and Gainwell. I mean, Swift and Penny are, injuries waiting to happen, unfortunately. But, you got Gainwell there to back him up. And if you can keep at least one of those guys on the field with Gainwell, I think they're going to be really good. And just having that ability to remove pressure from yourself by dumping it off to somebody or having those, I think he's going to be even better this year with Goddard back. Goddard missing half of last season. I grabbed Goddard in the 4th round of a startup the other day when I had grabbed Jalen Hurts as my at 103 as my starter. So Yeah, no, he's great. I wish I hadn't traded him away, but he's fantastic.
Jamie checking in here. He's one of my favorite regular. I won't say one of my favorite regular. He's my favorite regular. I love Jamie. He always checks in on our live broadcast. He says Podfather is my favorite superhero, but I'm not taking Hurts over Mahomes. Exactly. I think, that was a little too hot for me. The Podfather gets hot over there, especially this week. People tried, it was a whole thing that he himself posted a graph. We'll go off for just a second. He himself posted a graphic of him saying that Antonio Gibson is James Conner without the cancer.
I saw that. There was another one too about Adrian Peterson. Yeah,
that one might have. I think that one was fake. I think
those
that
have been
was
circulating.
I think that was a fake one. I'm pretty sure that Adrian Peterson one. But he posted that graphic up himself, and he got himself into a bunch of hot water. But that's what he likes to do. He likes to stir the pot. He likes to make people angry. I like it. Other people hate it. I understand though. So and some people on the Face Off Sports Network weren't big fans of it either, as we saw in our group chat. But.
Yeah, I saw in the group chat. Yeah, that was an interesting. I don't, context is context. It's important to understand what the rest was going on around it.
Yeah, that's him though. He likes his hot takes, but we'll jump back into it here. I've already threw up Josh Allen on the board here. this was the consensus quarterback one in Dynasty last season, so that just shows you how much changes we can see in just one season. I think the disrespect's gone too far. I mean, my goodness, this guy still was a top 5 quarterback 11 times last season. He was playing injured. The wide receiver core outside of Stephon Diggs was not great or very impressive. I think he was great, and I think he will continue to be fantastic. Mate, like I said, I like Jalen Hurts, just the team around him a little bit better, and that's why he's, I just think he's really set up for success these next few years. That's why Josh Allen's just slightly behind Jalen Hurts for me. Where does he fall in your rankings?
Pretty much in the same spot. Josh Allen is an interesting combination of, I think, interesting and boring. He's boring because he's so safe, but he's interesting because they're saying they want to pull him back from running a little bit, and that's a big portion of his game. Is the running backs on the Bills are not as coveted simply because if they're within 10 yards, Allen is going to try and take that in. And so reading some articles this year, they've been saying that they want to kind of pull back on that a little bit because, he's not going to be as effective forever. They want to keep him healthy as long as they can. So I think this season is going to be an interesting potential turning point for him because if he continues going the way he's going, he's going to stay exactly where he is pretty much no matter what he does. He's got a rocket launcher tied to his right arm, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what he does. But yeah, I have him pretty much exactly where you do.
No. That's hilarious. I thought I muted that. That'll be funny if we keep getting that as that keeps coming up. That'll be periodically throughout the podcast. I'm sure we'll get that yelled at us. But there was always people, coming in the middle of the podcast being like, I can't see who you ranked first and everything like that. So I wanted to get a graphic up on the screen for the people to see the quarterbacks that we're ranking, but I am still perfecting it. So thanks for bearing with me. Next up in my quarterback rankings, I have Justin Herbert. This is where I think we'll probably differ because a lot of people do not have Justin Herbert up this high still. I mean, I love Justin Herbert. He's fantastic. He was number 1 in money throws last year, which factors in kind of like these perfect throws that player profile. They're kind of a little subjective stat. But yeah, the touchdowns, he failed on the touch. The offense was just a mess last year. He was playing injured through some stuff last year. So I just think Justin Herbert's due for a bounce back. I like his rushing upside a little bit more than Joe Burrow. I think his upside's a little bit higher, although Joe Burrow may be a little bit safer. Where does he fall in your rankings? 5 or 6, I might guess?
Actually, no. I am a Justin Herbert truther. I don't know if that's still a thing. But, no, I absolutely love Justin Herbert. I have him in a ton of leagues. I think last year is an outlier. And I think he's going to be phenomenal this year. They've, got him. All of his weapons are back. They're all healthy. They brought Austin Eckler back. I don't like the Quentin Johnston hate. I get the the whole TCU terror. But I think Quentin Johnston is going to be a hugely valuable weapon to them. Not to mention he's a big body receiver and he's got 2 of the best big body receivers in the league to learn from. I think Justin Herbert's going to be an absolute monster this year. I would say it's a coin flip for me between Josh Allen and Justin Herbert, to be honest, just because I think last year is a solid outlier and he still wasn't awful.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe Lombardi's gone, luckily, and they've got Kellen Moore in there. They're going to be airing that ball out. I mean, yeah, I think he's going to be terrific this year.
The ceiling's so high, and I still think, I think he's going to reassert himself. I think we'll be talking about him in the upper tier of quarterbacks after this season. And I think he agrees as well. He loves Justin Herbert too. So, I love your son chiming in, giving us his fantasy football takes as well. I love Justin Herbert too, my man. So we're going to rank him at number 4 here. If I can figure out how to scroll. Oh, there we go. Scroll down on this list here. But
yeah, I just want to echo what Jamie just said. Yeah, 100%. He was playing hurt for most of the year and still had a top 12 fantasy year. So.
Yeah, and I expect Kellen Moore leading the offense. I think it will be a little bit more downfield passing too, instead of just checking it down to Austin Eckler. I think we could see some touchdown regression from Austin Eckler this year, and some positive touchdown regression from Justin Herbert this year. And without jumping into the progression debate that fantasy analysts love to debate into, I'll just jump into my number 5 ranked quarterback here, and that is the man himself, Joe Burrow, Joe Cool. I think he's rock solid safe. There isn't a safer quarterback in the NFL probably right now. But, other than Patrick Mahomes, I would say. Other than Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow probably has the safest floor. He's an excellent passer. He's probably second to Patrick Mahomes in terms of just maybe the second, third, right there with Justin Herbert as the best passers in the NFL. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. He's going to have to consistently do it with his passing, because he's not going to add anything with his legs. We saw that last year. Now, I know he's coming, he's getting healthier from that ACL injury he had a couple of years ago, but that's just not his game. I don't expect him to add much with his legs. So he's going to have to continue to be an upper echelon passer, but why wouldn't you expect that, considering he has the best wide receiver tandem in the NFL? So Joe Burrow, somebody I love still, just a little bit less than some of the other guys on this list, just with the lack of rushing upside, with doesn't have that big arm strength that some of these guys have too.
Yeah, I mean, up until this point, my feelings on your rankings are pretty solid. Joe Burrow, I mean, he is safe. He's got Jamar Chase, maybe Joe Mixon is back. Call me a fool, but I have some faith in Irv Smith this year. Being there. They signed, or they drafted Charlie Football. Everyone's gotta love that guy. And they got Andy Yasovich, I think his name is. I don't know. There's like 1,000 different ways to pronounce that name, I've heard. They surrounded him with great weapons. He's a solid he's arguably one, top 2 passers. He's safe. You always know what you're going to get from him. Speaking from fantasy, obviously, you're going to get 20 to 25 points a game, pretty much locked in.
Yeah, I love, Joe Burrow, he was somebody I was bullish on a couple of years ago. I mean, I just thought he was crazy. He was coming off an ACL injury and he played fantastic, and he was ranked outside the top 10 dynasty quarterbacks. I mean, going into last year, I was like, this is crazy, guys. Come on, this guy's going to be great. Joe Burrow. I mean, that was actually 2 years ago. I'm losing track of my years. I think it was
2 years ago.
2 years ago, coming off his rookie season, people were down on him. And of course, he went to the Super Bowl. So shows what us fantasy analysts know. Next up, let me scroll down here. Next up, I have Trevor Lawrence in the 6th spot. Now, this is what I struggled with here. This was a tough one. I was always big on Trevor Lawrence coming in. I was drafting him in this first round of Superflex drafts when he was a rookie. Of course, I thought I completely, I thought it was a huge mistake after his rookie season, even though I thought Urban Meyer may have caused a lot of those issues, which is looking like in hindsight he did. But Trevor Lawrence, he had 8 interceptions, I believe, in the first 8 games last season, and then he cut it down to just 2, I think, in the final couple games. In the final second half of the season. So really cut out the turnovers, cut out the fumbling. He was kind of a Daniel Jones out there too, just ejecting the football when he was getting tackled. Cut that out. You saw it pop up again at the end of the last season, but reduce that a little bit. So I think Trevor Lawrence getting a lot smarter, adds a lot of that. Very similar to very similar to Justin Herbert. Of course, physically being that 6'6" profile, but he also has a lot of juice with his legs too. Kind of, probably even a little bit more athletic dual threat ability than Justin Herbert. And then the Jaguar offense this year: Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram, Travis Etienne. That's an exciting offense too. Trevor Lawrence set up for success. I think this is a make or break year. If he's not very good, he's going to fall down these rankings. Where does he fall for you?
So this is where it starts getting kind of muddy. Trevor Lawrence, I can't really argue with him being at this spot. I don't have a reason not to put him here. I am happy that they surrounded him with some more talent. I like that they re-signed Evan Ingram for a year. Kind of wish they'd given him a little bit more in terms of time, just because he obviously has some chemistry with Lawrence. But then again, I do like Brenton Strange, and Tank Bigsby will be fun to watch. He's the hammer that Travis Etienne is not. But yeah, I mean, I think if he can get his interceptions under control, he'll be absolutely maybe top 5 going forward. But I mean, like you said, he threw I think what it was 8 in the first few games, and then got himself kind of right. But then he threw 3 more in the playoffs. In that one game, they ended up coming back to win. But it's almost like when he's under pressure and he's nervous, the ball just he doesn't know where the ball's going to go, kind of a thing. But you're absolutely right about the dual threat ability. He definitely has the tools to be fantastic. Whether or not he can actually realize it, that's another thing. But yeah, I don't have a reason not to put him at number 6.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence, I agree. It's a big year for him. He doesn't have as much poise as maybe we thought. I think that's kind of what you're alluding to. The fact that when he gets nervous, maybe gets under pressure, doesn't make the decision making for Trevor Lawrence needs to be improved.
Good way to say it. Yeah.
So hopefully we see that progression this year, because like I said, if he has this set up for success and he doesn't produce big fantasy numbers, I think there's a reason to be worried. All right. Going up in our next spot in these quarterback rankings, I believe I have up Lamar Jackson. This feels heavy for a player who hasn't finished, as he's been disappointing on his ADP for 3 straight years. It's been 4 years ago, that MVP performance, and then 3 straight years in fantasy he's suffered injuries, hasn't quite lived up to the expectations because he hasn't been an upper echelon passer. But the Ravens didn't do him any favors these last couple of years, with Marquise Brown, Rashad Bateman being the only wide receivers of note, really. So Lamar Jackson, new offensive coordinator, going to be maybe a little bit more passing this heavy this year, but I still expect him to run the ball plenty. This is a polarizing player. I think he could be the quarterback 1 if he stays healthy for 15, 16 games, like Jalen Hurts last season. But we've seen it 3 years in a row, him get injured. So, where does he fall? Like I said, this is a guy who I've seen still as a top 4 or 5 dynasty quarterback. He's somebody I see floating toward 9 or 10 in dynasty rankings. So where does he land for you?
So yeah, I actually have him a little bit lower. I worry about the injury history. I worry about the potential lack of running in a Todd Monken offense. But realistically, I have him just 1 spot lower. I have him at 8, and I actually have Deshaun Watson higher. At 7. Deshaun Watson, he tore his ACL back. I can't remember what year. But and he came back and he was still a top 5 dynasty quarterback up until the whole fiasco with him being potentially an awful person. But I don't know, for Lamar Jackson, and I'm not trying to be accusatory in any way, trying to be hot take or anything, but he was angling for a new contract and he kept getting hurt. And there's just this small part of me that wonders if he's just like, what, screw the Ravens. If they're not going to give me a contract I want, then I'm not going to play.
There's the timer yelling at us again.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm long-winded, but no. I mean, I like Lamar Jackson. I like that he got I like that he got a contract, and I think that's going to change, the way he plays. And I'd be really curious to see if he stays healthy this whole year. Hopefully, he does, just from a person to person standpoint. But I don't know. Now that he has a contract, it'll be interesting to see if he stays healthy the whole year. But yeah, I mean, if you remove some of his running, then he's never been the greatest passer. He's a very, very good passer, but he's not the greatest. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. But I have him 1 spot lower at 8, and I have Deshaun Watson at 7.
This is a make or break year. He's this high in these dynasty. I always want to put Deshaun Watson ahead of him. I think I fall to group think, and I have Lamar Jackson ahead. But if he gets injured this year, if he doesn't live up to it as a passer, if he's not a top 5 fantasy, top 6 fantasy quarterback this year, I think the floor is going to fall out for his dynasty value, because that'll be 4 years in a row. So I think, it's another guy, make or break season for Lamar Jackson, but somebody who has QB1 within his range of outcomes. So
yeah.
Our next quarterback up in these rankings is, you talked about him, Deshaun Watson. The first season obviously didn't go according to plan. only scored 0.40 fantasy points per dropback. Offense struggled to gain any traction. This should have been expected, I think, after a long layoff.
Yeah.
He was a top 5 fantasy quarterback for 3 straight seasons from 2018 to 2020. I always just talk about how plugged in these you have to beat it in the NFL. You're plugged in 24 hours a day almost. Think Deshaun Watson was 2 years where he wasn't focusing on football as much as all these rest of these people were. So I think it makes sense that he struggled last season. I think we see a bounce back this year. I think he did finish as a top 10 quarterback 2 straight weeks to end the season last year. So we saw that improve. He needs to cut out the turnovers, but I think he will. I just think we saw such big glaring accuracy and mistakes last season. I think he'll right that ship. I don't think he's completely lost it or anything like that. Where Deshaun Watson, where does he fall for you? I think 6 or 7, you said?
No, he falls at 7 for me.
7.
Yeah, I mean, think about it this way. His last game of the season last year, I think he went 6 for 18, but 3 of those completed passes were touchdowns. He literally had a 50% touchdown rate in that game. I believe it was 3. It might have been 2. Been a while. But regardless, he's absolutely going to have a bounce back year. Oh, yeah. Okay, Jamie. I saw that post. Yeah, someone accidentally drafted Lucky Jackson instead of Lamar Jackson.
I don't even know who Lucky Jackson is.
He's a 31-year-old receiver that was in the XFL this year, and he was signed by the Vikings.
Yeah. Lucky Jackson. All right. That's a great name.
He's not even the right color in for the player. They're color coded. Like, how little was that person paying attention? But
hey, I think Lucky Jackson's a first-round name.
It absolutely is. If he was 21, then totally. But yeah. Anyway, no. I mean, I love the team that they put around Deshaun Watson too. Still got Chubb. I'm a big believer in Jerome Ford. You got Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Cedric Tillman. I really like. I think he is a little bit better than Jalen Hyatt, but the conversation for another day. I think I just think Deshaun Watson's going to get back to his old self. Like I said, top 5 quarterback when he was healthy for every year. It wasn't like an up and down. It was every year he was healthy. He was finishing like 3 or 4. And I think he'll get back to that. He's still 27. He's still young, still healthy. I think he's going to be fine.
I think it could be very. I think we'll look back and maybe this was way too conservative. I think he's another guy. I mean, unless he's lost it, he's going to end up putting himself right back in that Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes tier because that's where he was.
Yeah.
And this ranking is factoring in that maybe he's lost something in these last couple of years, which is possible. It's entirely possible. He's very passionate about Deshaun Watson. I can tell your son is one of those drafters who's just not into Deshaun Watson. He's throwing him out the window. You know what I mean? He doesn't appreciate all that off the field stuff. So I respect that from your son. I respect that. Okay, we're done.
He needs a nap. Let me just pick him up.
Absolutely. No problem at all. I will take it for a moment here. So the up next in these rankings, let me slide up here. The next player I have is Kyler Murray. Now, I know for some of you, my quarterback 10, you're like, where's Justin Fields? He's coming. Don't worry. He's coming. But Kyler Murray is my quarterback 9, and I have him as not a bounce back candidate in 2023, but I think we will see that over the course. This guy has been a top 7 quarterback in fantasy points per game for 3 straight years. No, advanced metrics suggest that he was a very accurate last year as well. I know a lot of those fantasy points came in garbage time. I know he's coming off an ACL injury, but I still think Kyler Murray is a very valuable fantasy asset. He's going to be, anytime he steps out on the field, especially I think once we get to 2024 and he's recovering from that knee injury, I think he will be top 10 fantasy quarterback again. I know we don't like some of the off the field stuff, some of his motivation, but he is certainly, you look at the quarterback landscape in the NFL, there's a place for Kyler Murray in this league, and I think he'll always be a fantasy contributor because of that. So I still have him as a top 9 fantasy quarterback. That's a polarizing, I know, take. So where does Kyler Murray fall for you?
Again, I had him and Justin Fields flipped. Kyler Murray scares me a little bit. Like, I wish that just for once Ubisoft would not come out with a Call of Duty for like 1 year, so that we could get a full like top 5 fantasy season out of Kyler Murray. I've got him in a few leagues, but I hear people talking about. I mean, the Cardinals are going to be they're going to be not good this year. Okay, they're not set up to be good. They let what's his name, Hopkins go. Because why have somebody catching touchdowns if you're not trying to win? And now people are talking about they're going to have the number 1 overall pick. They might have 2 top picks because they got the Texans, first round pick from next year. And people are talking about them drafting Caleb Williams. Collapse for Caleb. It was tank for Tua, and now it's collapse for Caleb, I've been saying. And it's one of those things, like, they just signed Kyler to a fat new contract. Like, why are people saying they're going to draft Caleb? I think Kyler is a really, really good quarterback. He's got, again, a very strong arm. Little bit on the diminutive side, little short, but that really hasn't stopped him. He's quick, he's fast, he can get the ball pretty much anywhere on the field he needs to. He just scares me a little bit because week 12 every year you see a natural drop off. It's like clockwork. You can set your watch to it. But that has not stopped me from taking him, when and where he's available, because of the injury. I grabbed him in the second round, like the late second round, in a few 12-team startups, super flex, and so it's like you can't pass on that value. But if somebody told me it's either you get him at 102 or you don't get him, I was like, I'm not getting him then, But
I get it.
Yeah, I get it. I'm in Fields flipped.
I understand this, being a little trepidatious about Kyler Murray. I just, even if, finishing with the number 1 pick, that's still an outlier range of outcomes. There's a lot of bad teams in the NFL, so there's no guarantee. Caleb Williams, of course, that would be concerning, and I think, you definitely, if you're the Arizona Cardinals, you think about taking Caleb Williams on a rookie contract. Absolutely. But, I think that could be the only threat to Kyler Murray is if they do get that, either the Houston Texans or Arizona Cardinals get that number 1 pick. And even so, I think Kyler Murray is going to have value in this league. I think there's going to be, he will be on it. There's going to be a roster starting quarterback spot for Kyler Murray in this league for the foreseeable future. So I'm not extremely worried, although I think it's certainly.
Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, if they were to draft Caleb Williams, Kyler Murray would not remain a free agent for long. He would go somewhere and probably be very successful.
So next up here, Justin Fields, like you said. Now, this is a little bit late for a lot of people who love Justin Fields, I know, but I have to see it a little bit more as a passer. It's a little scary. He threw for less than 150 yards per game in 2022. If you look at his, you just look at his passing numbers, his accuracy, his pass rating, it's all near the bottom of the league. I know his wide receiver core did him no favors last year, but it was still an objectively bad passing season for Justin Fields.
Yeah.
I think I know the rushing, he'll have a safe floor just because of that rushing upside, but for dynasty purposes, he has to improve as a passer. You know what I mean? They're not going to keep throwing him out there to throw 25 times a game and to have less than 150 passing yards. That's just not the way the NFL is. The Chicago Bears won't be able to compete with playoff teams playing that kind of style, high school almost style football, running the ball almost every single play. So that won't work. Justin Fields is going to need to take that next step, but we saw in college. This guy can do it. He's much further along than somebody, say, Anthony Richardson, who I'm going to talk about in just a second, as a passer. So, if we're drafting Anthony Richardson highly, we shouldn't have any problem drafting Justin Fields highly too. I just think we talk about Kyler Murray, it's how much I like the quarterbacks ahead of him on this list. Not so much that I don't like Justin Fields or anything like that. He's still a quarterback 1 in these rankings. I just think I like the players ahead of him on this list are significantly better passers. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, no, I agree. And let me just reiterate, actually not even reiterate, just say something. One of the main reasons I have Murray and Fields flipped is because I worry that Murray will run less when he comes back from his ACL injury. Okay. Justin Fields, obviously his main, attribute right now is his ability to run 150 yards a game. It's hard to beat that. I really like Justin Fields. However, saying that, I realize now that I only have, I think, 1 share of him across all my teams. I wonder if this year there is going to set kind of a precedent for these shaky run-first quarterbacks or shaky dual-threat quarterbacks. Get them a top-tier wide receiver, and they become, superstars like, A.J. Brown to the Eagles last year, now DJ Moore to the Bears this year. I think Fields, I've been reading a lot of reports. Obviously, he's one of my starting quarterbacks, one of my leagues, so I've been reading a lot of reports about him. Everything coming out of training camp is that he's improved, across all areas. leadership, heads up decision making, throwing in general. There's apparently like a real connection between him and DJ Moore already. I don't know. I think Fields is going to be. I think he's going to surprise this year. Do I think he's going to jump all the way up into like top 5? No. I mean, I don't think I don't think really anybody can crack that. Aside from maybe Deshaun Watson if he gets back to like circa 2019. But I think Fields is going to be a really interesting one to watch this year because this is it. This is his 1 year. If he doesn't perform well, then, or let me say this, if the Bears don't win with him, it's not necessarily how he performs. If the Bears are winning, they're not going to mess with the formula, But if everything doesn't go terrible, then I think everything could work out for him. And realistically, I mean, he seems like a good person too. I mean, reading stories about him flying all over the country supporting his teammates' charities. That's great to see. You gotta love the leadership, and everything I've been reading says that the vibe in the locker room is completely different than it was last year. So I mean, that matters. I played on a lot of sports teams. I was in the military. The vibe in a room really matters.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That Jalen Hurts factor. I like it. Jalen Hurts elevating that locker room. You know what I mean? That's what they talk about in that Philadelphia Eagles locker room, the captivating presence of Jalen Hurts. Maybe you see a little bit of that in Justin Fields as well, which will certainly help him stay on that field, provide some extra value to the Bears as well. So I really like that. The next player up I have here, another polarizing player. And I think marks a fairly big drop off for me. But I have Anthony Richardson up next. I just love the potential. You know what I mean? I was really concerned in the pre-draft process, but this is the most athletic player to ever grace the NFL Combine. And, he was drafted number 4 overall. That's exactly what we wanted. I was concerned about the draft. I was like, well, if a team drafts him in the teens or the 20s, that gives, that tells us that they have a lot of concerns about him. But number 4 draft capital, perfect landing spot. If you were, Nick Sirianni, and this is the new head coach in Indianapolis, and he was the one who gave us the offense last year with Jalen Hurts. So you see a lot of things lining up for Anthony Richardson to be very successful. Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Jonathan Taylor back there running the RPO. That is going to be dangerous. So, Anthony Richardson, where did he fall? Where were your feeling on him as a prospect, and feeling coming in now that he's an Indianapolis Colt?
So, I mean, I love the landing spot. Shane Steichen is the quarterback whisperer, Brian Daboll flip side, I guess. But 13 games. Like, he's only started 13 games, I mean, so I'm going to bring up another quarterback that's nowhere near on this list, nor should he be, but Will Levis. Will Levis played 4 years in college. If he had come out last year, he would have been a first-round quarterback pick, right? Because of how he played. Will Levis this year got the shit kicked out of him. Literally watched a game one time where he got a dislocated finger, went to the sidelines, had it pop back in, taped his fingers, and went back out. Got the shit kicked out of him, lost everything. Anthony Richardson Florida didn't have a good offense. They didn't. I mean, you watch those games and you're wondering how they won anything, but 13 games.
Sub 55% completion percentage in those 13 games.
13 games. Like he's not an accurate passer. He's like watching an M1A1 Abrams tank run down the field with a football, but he's too raw. He's too raw. I have him much lower. And here's a hot take for you. Okay. I actually have in my rankings, I had him and Bryce Young flipped.
Okay.
I'll explain why when we get to Young at 15, but I had them flipped. Anthony Richardson, I mean, he's not accurate. His upside is drool worthy. I mean, the most athletic quarterback prospect of all time. But it's just, I don't know.
I know it's tough. It's tough to trust. I mean, I get it, but just we've seen it with Jalen Hurts. We saw it with Josh Allen. We saw these guys take big step forwards as passers. And actually giving what you said credence. Anthony Richardson is not as a developed passer as either of those two guys are at this stage, even. So
that's true.
But we just see it. Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen. All these guys came into the NFL. significant concerns. People were laughing at the Bills for taking Josh Allen in the top 10. And Lamar Jackson was bottom of the first round pick, one of the last picks in the first round. Jalen Hurts was a second round pick. I think teams are coming around, and I'm as a fantasy player, I'm willing to take the risk. I'm willing to try to get out ahead, but because the ceiling is quarterback one in dynasty fantasy football leagues, because that's what he could bring to the table. So I like Anthony Richardson. I love all the physical tools as well. I don't necessarily see like a guy who just like Malik Willis last year. You saw some clear, like when you were looking at his film, you saw a lot of holes. I think I see the mechanics can be there. I see a guy who can be coached up to being a good passer. So that's why he's that ahead. And so we'll speed it up a little bit here. Dak Prescott.
Just one thing real quick on Richardson.
Oh, sure.
Think about it this way: the quarterbacks that you named, Hurts, Allen, they all had very mediocre first couple seasons, right? Coming at it from a fantasy perspective, I'd rather trade for Richardson after he has a bad year than draft him using an early first.
That makes sense. I could definitely see Anthony Richardson getting off to a slower start. We saw that with Jalen Hurts. Lamar Jackson didn't start his right away. Josh Allen was not a top 12 quarterback even after his first season. We saw a lot of glaring holes, a lot of mistakes in his game. So I could certainly see that as well. Like I was saying, Dak Prescott is my QB 11. I feel like, just to sit, I'm going to gloss a couple of these guys. Safe player, lost some of that rushing upside, less than 200 yards rushing per game over the last few seasons. So just not a guy with a super high ceiling anymore, but a safe floor, should be the starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys for the foreseeable future. Tua, obviously it's health. You know what I mean? Tua, he has all the tools. He's a good passer, but one more, he thought about retiring apparently this offseason. One more concussion could seriously put his career in jeopardy. That's the concern there. And we will stop. Whoops, put it at the wrong one here. We will stop, though, at CJ Stroud at quarterback 14. I have him ahead of Bryce Young. I just see him as a guy more prototypical size, although he's not a flashy player, we saw him, saw that dual threat ability come out in the against Georgia in the National College Football Playoff last year when the wide receivers started getting, he wasn't going to be asked to run the ball a lot in college with Marvin Harrison Jr., Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. I'm forgetting some, Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Jigba.
Ridiculous. So he was going to throw the ball, and we saw when his wide receivers weren't there, we saw a little bit more rushing upside. He's not like a gunslinger. He's kind of the opposite of Will Levis or, somebody like Zach Wilson or somebody like that. He's very methodical, makes smart decisions, short downfield passes. So I think he provides. I think he's going to be a starting quarterback in this league for a while. I don't think he's going to be a perennial top 12, 10 quarterback necessarily, maybe because he doesn't have that rushing upside. So you're betting on him to get it done passing a lot of the time. So kind of a borderline quarterback one for me. Probably, if things work out well, I think he'll settle into that top 10 range. But, just given the fact we haven't seen him, I have him as my quarterback 14. I don't think he has, not somebody I'm targeting in one quarterback formats, but somebody I could see being a starter in super flex leagues for a long time. So he was your quarterback 3 in rookie rank?
No. I've got Stroud exactly where you do.
Okay, so he was ahead of Anthony Richardson for you.
He was ahead of Anthony Richardson.
Okay.
Yeah, just because his time, he's got experience. He's won games. It's an interesting contrast though, because you got guys like Joe Burrow, where when Joe Burrow came out, it was saying that he was elevating the offense around him. And now people are saying that the offense around Stroud was elevating him. And also one other receiver that wasn't mentioned was Emeka Egbuka. This guy's a first round pick next year probably. I like Stroud. I think his career trajectory is halfway between maybe Joe Burrow and Derek Carr. Somewhere right in the middle.
Big difference.
Yeah, somewhere right in the middle.
Somewhere right in the middle. I like it.
Top 15 player.
Yeah.
Gonna be good. Throw in there, but he's never gonna be that guy that you're reaching for in the first round. But I like him. I think he's good. I grabbed him in my own league. I think I grabbed him at the 104. Even though I didn't need a quarterback in that league, I was pretty much set. But it's super flex league. You grab quarterbacks when you can.
Always draft the best player available. I totally agree with that.
Exactly. Yeah. No, but I like him. But the next one, Bryce Young. That's what I want to talk about.
All right, give it to me. Why is Bryce Young the QB1 in this class?
So Bryce Young did not go to sleep one day 6'3", 220, and wake up the next day 5'10", 204. He has always been small. He has always been undersized. he has always been successful. Okay, he's never really been injured. You watch some of those games, some of his games, and you're like, this dude's about to get annihilated, and then just he moves. It's like, you know, I've never been a huge person. You know, I'm like 5'10", like 185 or something. But people who are constantly under threat from people who are much bigger than they are develop almost a sixth sense for when they're in danger. I mean, you watch some of his escapes and they're just like, how the hell did he know he was coming? Now, obviously this camp tape, people panicking because he had a pass swatted away. I mean, everyone has passes get swatted. I don't know. Bryce Young, he's been successful everywhere. He's a Heisman Trophy winner. He's just a consummate football player. He's not going to get you much on the ground, obviously. He's too small for that. He doesn't have an arm like, you know, Josh Allen or Justin Herbert. I don't ever see him being a top 7, top 8 guy. But his consistency, I think, in the long run will outweigh Richardson's, you know, upside if Richardson can't ever develop as a passer. Now, if Richardson develops as a passer, gets like 62 to 64% pass, you know, completion rating, then Richardson's going to blow him out of the water, hands down. I'm not trying to say he's not going to, but I don't know. I think the Bryce Young hate went a little far. And they're like, oh, he's too small. It's like, he's always been small. You guys were saying he's the top quarterback in the class for 3 seasons, and now he's too small.
I agree with you there. That part is true. He didn't wake up one day short. However, you know, he is more athletic. I'm not saying that, but if you just looked at his size, his height and weight, his best comparable, it's very hard to find. You don't see it almost anywhere in NFL history. It's Doug Flutie. It's the closest player that's ever been to his size playing as a consistent starter. It wasn't a fantasy relevant player either, Doug Flutie. So, that's the concern.
He did have a drop kick punt, field goal.
Drop kick punt. That's hilarious. But Bryce Young, it's just he's similar height. You know, it's not like it's crazy height. It's Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray height. But what he lacks is thickness. He doesn't have anywhere near the muscle build that those guys have. A lot skinnier. So is he going to be able to hold up? And considering that he's that small, and he has athleticism, but he's not going to probably add anything with his legs fantasy-wise because they're not going to want to put him out in the open field getting tackled like that. So considering that, he's going to have to get it done almost completely with his arm with the Houston Texans offense in these next couple of years now. Maybe he develops along the line.
Well, no, he's Panthers.
Panthers. That's what I meant. Sorry about that. Panthers offense. So Panthers offense, same thing. Like I was saying, it's just he's going to have to really elevate. I mean, the Panthers – something's going to have to give here. If Bryce Young in the next couple of years is going to be a top 12, top 15 fantasy quarterback, the Panthers are going to be good because he's going to be getting those passing numbers. He's going to have to be generating touchdowns for that to happen. I'm just a little worried, you know, considering the Panthers have one of the least talented skill position groups in the NFL. It's Miles Sanders, then it's Adam Thielen, DJ Chark, Terrace Marshall. You know, not what you want to see for a rookie passer who's going to, like I said, who's going to have to get it done almost predominantly all with his arm, and that's the concern. There's a lot of things he's going to have to overcome. Panthers offense, his size, not getting injured with that, you know, considering he's smaller, and that's why he's a little bit lower for me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's going to come down to his escapability 100%. If he can, I mean, you know, can't really tackle quarterbacks in the NFL anymore anyway, but I mean, if he takes one bad hit, you know, from a 330-pound lineman, you know, it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I think if he can stay healthy, I think long-term he's going to be really good.
I think, absolutely. If he can stay healthy, he has the arm talent, one of the best pure passers in the last couple of years to come out of the draft. So I definitely can see it. Next up here is my quarterback. Where are we at? Quarterback 16. Quarterback 16 is Daniel Jones. You know, this is a guy who, I mean, easily, you know, if he just builds on what he did last year, if he's as good as he was last year, he's going to be a top 12 quarterback. He was number 5, I believe, in rush yards per game last year, got a lot done with his legs, over 700 rushing yards. The concern, I guess, is that they didn't help him out at wide receiver. The New York Giants wide receivers were a mess last year. It's going to be a mess again this year. And the schedule is a lot tougher when I was looking at it. So he's going to be playing some better defenses too. So it might not be as easy this year for Daniel Jones. What do you think about his outlook going forward?
I like it. I mean, they did help him in the passer.
I mean, I don't want to say they didn't, but
no, I was going to say they added Darren Waller. He's
he's
the wide receiver one there now. If I think if Saquon can come back, if they can work that deal out, that will be a massive help to them, obviously. I do like Eric Gray, don't get me wrong, but I think if Daniel Jones, I can say this, that the Giants are kicking themselves for not picking up his 5th-year option last year. I think if he can build on last year, I think he threw for 19 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. He's going to get touchdowns up or the interceptions down. But regardless, I think on top of that, I think he also ran for, I don't even remember offhand how many he ran for.
I think he was between 700 and 800 yards, if I remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, I was trying to remember the touchdowns. I think he ran for 9 touchdowns, if I remember correctly. But if he can build on that, if Daboll can keep building him up, then I think he's gonna have a long career. I actually traded for him right at the end of the season before he signed his contract. Traded away, I don't remember. I think I traded away Trey Lance and some other stuff for him. And this is not a quarterback, but Shiggy Okonkwo. I love that guy. I think he's going to be awesome this year. But yeah, no, I think he's going to be good, and I'm trying to acquire him wherever I can.
Yeah, a lot of upside there. Just like I said, are we going to see the Daniel Jones that we saw last year, or is he going to, was that a product of the schedule? Maybe a little bit too. So we'll find out.
Yeah.
Next up here,
very easy schedule.
A very easy schedule. It's going to get tougher this year. We'll find out. Kirk Cousins, I'll gloss over him. You know what you're getting in Kirk Cousins. He's part of a prolific offense. How many years does he have left? You could see the wheels falling off at any moment for Kirk Cousins, but at the moment, should be a top 12, 13 quarterback in fantasy this season. I want to touch on these two guys, though. I put them together in almost every talk because they're so similar to me. Geno Smith and Jared Goff. What are your feelings on these players? Because I think they're in great positions to contribute. They are a part of prolific offenses, what could be this year, but not what we consider upper echelon quarterbacks. Really, they've had a lot of inconsistency. So, they're a product, I think, of maybe what their offense is going to be this year. So how long are they going to be able to maintain that starting role? But with them, the teams being competitive, they're maybe not going to get a high pick in these next couple of years either. So, what are your feelings on Jared Goff and Geno Smith and their future outlook?
Well, Geno Smith has made things very difficult on fantasy players because now everybody is snagging all the quarterbacks off the waiver wire because they might be good. I like Geno Smith. I think he's a good player. I definitely think he's a product of the offense. Pete Carroll has put a good team around him. They had a good team last year. They're going to be even better this year. Hated the Zach Charbonnet pick, but what are you going to do? I think he's going to continue being good. I think from a non-football perspective, I think him and his agent are absolute geniuses. They took a smaller contract to stay in Seattle where he knows pretty definitively that he's going to be successful. And then if they get out of that, let's say they get another quarterback in a year, he can move on, get another contract somewhere else. So he's a smart player, both from a, financial and from a player's, football side. I think he's going to be good. He's 30 years old. He's got, I'd say, 6 or 7 more years in the NFL, and I'd say another 3 or 4 years of success, before he kind of becomes that mentor type quarterback. And then Jared Goff, I'm a Patriots fan. My wife is a Lions fan, so we're a dual household. It was fun. We went to the Lions and Patriots game last year when they were out in Foxborough. Don't really know how to feel about Jared Goff. They drafted Hendon Hooker in the 3rd this year. They're talking about an extension for Goff. This is a make or break year for him. They have arguably one of the better, offenses on paper. And if he can be successful, again, there's no reason to stir the pot. They won their last 6 games last year. They have a hilarious coach in Dan Campbell. I don't know if you remember the interview that he did after during the Green Bay game.
Which one? He has so many hilarious interviews.
But no, during the Green Bay game, they're like, "Are you still trying to win this game?" He's like, "Oh fuck yeah!" Like, why? Is like, because we're keeping them out of the playoffs. We can't make it. We're keeping them out. And I think that's a team that has a lot of fun on the field, and I think Jared Goff is gonna definitely benefit from that. But yeah, I like him. He's in terms of fantasy, he's a good QB3, good, low end QB2 with some definite spike weeks, if you play best ball. But I like him. I think he's going to be successful with the team they put around him.
Yeah. And, That's what I think too. I think these guys are, I think they're starters for the next couple seasons because, they're on great teams and they should be set up for success. No reason to stir the pot. Hendon Hooker, 3rd-round pick. They won't feel pressured to move on to him either.
Yeah.
Next up, polarizing player Russell Wilson. I really thought about even putting Russell Wilson as high as 15 on this list. You know what I mean? It's just, man, how much did he lose last season? He looked just like a totally different quarterback, inaccurate, just wasn't. We have to factor in I always talk about the people aspect. You never know what's going on. You know what I mean? Like life happens. You know what I mean? This guy moved cities. You never know. How this person's feeling. Moving cities, changing, uprooting their life and moving across the country. So people react to that kind of stuff differently. So Russell Wilson struggled in his first season in Denver. Sean Payton coming into town. I think I have to think we see some kind of bounce back. I don't know if he's going to get back to Seattle level playing, MVP caliber, 8 straight seasons of being a top 10 fantasy quarterback. I think maybe 9 actually. So, yeah. I just think we see a little bit of a bounce back. I think we see he doesn't have any rushing upside anymore, really. So I think he finishes as a high-end quarterback too this season. I have a couple players I like ahead of him just for being young, but I think he's a high-end quarterback too.
Yeah, we already saw. They fired Nathaniel Hackett in week 12 or 13 last year. And then as soon as Hackett was gone, we saw Wilson have like 4 good weeks, 4 solid weeks of like NFL and fantasy production. I think we already saw his bounce back. He came in this year. He lost a little bit of weight. They drafted some new players. They got Sean Payton. Don't underestimate what he can do. He found success in in the New Orleans for so many years. I think he's going to have a really good year. And I've been trading for and drafting him, in later rounds, of course, not like, 2nd or 3rd, but I've been grabbing him where I can because he's still young. He's still healthy. And I think he's going to, do really well there moving forward.
Yeah, I think he's got a nice 2 to 3 year window of production left. Maybe not a 1 quarterback league starter, but a super flex league starter. Absolutely. I'll group up these next 2 players. What's your outlook on Kenny Pickett and Jordan Love? Do you have a preference on either of those 2 going forward? I think maybe Jordan Love, they're both similar prospects coming out. I like the offense a little bit better in Pittsburgh, but you still got Christian Watson, Aaron Jones there in Green Bay. What's your outlook on those 2 players?
Well, I'm a Patriots fan, so I by birthright I hate Kenny Pickett, just because he's a Steeler, and the Jets. Fuck the Jets.
I had to think about it for a second. I was like, why do you hate Kenny Pickett?
I don't hate him as a person.
But you hate the Pittsburgh Steelers. I get it. I had to think back to all those crazy Pittsburgh games. It's been a few years since we got the chance to see those games. Actually,
that is true. Yeah, that is true. But no, I think Pickett is going to take a step forward. He was an interception machine to start off last year, and then I think he only threw 1 or 2 in the final 6 or 7 games. He needs to use his legs a little bit more. I think Matt Canada needs to get a little bit more creative with him. But they've got George Pickens, they got Pat Freiermuth, they got Deontay Johnson, Najee Harris, Jalen Warren. They've got a lot of really good weapons to use, and I think after a full offseason, he's going to be much better this year. I can see him long term being a top 20, maybe top 15 guy. I don't have any shares of him. I traded away my 1 share of him in a league where I really didn't need him. But yeah, and as far as Jordan Love goes, time will tell. He had that one really good series last year against the Eagles where I think he went 3 for 4 to Christian Watson for like 100 yards and a touchdown or something like that. No, he went 9 for 13, and Watson caught 3 or 4 for 100 yards and a touchdown. I think Love, if he was able to sponge knowledge and experience and information off the next quarterback on your list for the last 3 years, I think he's going to come out and surprise the hell out of everybody. I am drafting him when he's available. But it's a time will tell. He was a first-round pick. They did extend him extend his 5th year. So they have confidence in him, and it could just be blind confidence because they don't know what they don't know yet. But he's got the tools. AJ Dillon, as you said, Aaron Jones, Christian Watson. They drafted a couple of guys. What is his name? Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave, Tyler Kraft. They put some young weapons around him that you can build chemistry and camaraderie with. So I think he's got a legitimate shot. They're doing what they can to help him.
Yeah, and just chiming in what Jamie said, Jamie's drawing on the comparison of, Russell Wilson, on Player Profiler site I
Yeah.
work for, their closest comparison to Russell Wilson is Drew Brees. You see Sean Payton there, so you see Sean Payton could get cooking. With, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton got some nice ingredients to work with as well. Greg Dulcich, Javonte Williams. So that's an exciting offense there. We'll touch in on our last two quarterbacks here. Kind of guys maybe getting maybe in the twilight of their career. Aaron Rodgers getting 40, Derek Carr, the production is starting to wane. If you look at Derek Carr, if you look at a stat from Derek Carr, odds are that it was the worst since his rookie season. It was a bad year for Derek Carr. He just had, he's not a just not a very prolific passer. He's not going to, hasn't really gotten over 25 touchdown passes. I don't think maybe once in the last 6 or 7 seasons. So just not a lot of juice there. I don't think the offense there's some pieces to like on that offense. I don't think we should expect Derek Carr to reinvent the wheel this year. Back end quarterback too, kind of like he has been. And I expect Aaron Rodgers. I think we could see one last hurrah. Another guy who lost a lot of that, lost the juice with his legs. So probably a guy who's going to be a high end quarterback, borderline quarterback one. But I think, I have him this low because I'm tired of the yearly retirement talk. You can't sell him for anything in dynasty leagues. He has to be this low, I think, you know what I mean? But as far as a player this season goes, I think he's a great value. I think he's going to go probably, like I said, I haven't redone my rankings in a little while, but I think quarterback 13, 14 sounds about right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Aaron Rodgers is an interesting one because I noticed an immediate change in him when he showed up at the Jets training camp. You remember him, Green Bay, he had the long, scraggly hair, the pseudo man bun. He just didn't look like he wanted to be there, And then he shows up to Jets training camp. His hair is cut. He looked, he was shaved. He looked good. He
didn't have a Nicolas Cage wife beater on.
He did not have a Nicolas Cage wife
good.
beater on. Yeah, he wasn't wearing Crocs on the field. He looked like he wanted to be there. He looked like he gave a shit. So he's only. The ego of these guys is ridiculous. He's only, I think, 39 or 40 to start the season. I think he's going to be just 40. Brady Pitt played till he was 45.
I don't think he has I don't think he's eating avocado ice cream in the offseason like Tom Brady, though, to his credit.
Yeah.
To Tom Brady's credit, Aaron Rodgers doesn't strike me as that guy.
No, absolutely not. I don't think Rodgers has the chops to go that long, but I think he's got at least one. I'm gonna check myself before I say this. At least one more productive year, but probably 2 or 3 years left in the NFL.
I think two. I think
2.
Yeah, right.
That's fair. And then Derek Carr. Derek Carr is the consummate. You get what you pay for, quarterback. The contract he got with the Saints, I think, was a little ridiculous. Yeah, it was a little. I mean, it's basically the same thing that Daniel Jones got. It was 4 years, $160 million, something like that. I'm sure the guaranteed was different, but although Derek Carr's contract I think is really like a 2-year or 3-year deal.
It always is. It's always half. You can always make sure. You can always bet it's half of what they actually
exactly.
The total contract.
Yeah. Well, like Geno Smith is only a 1-year deal, really.
Yeah.
But I mean, Carr, he's only 31, I think. He's got some young talent around him. He's been making connections with Olave and Juwan Johnson down there during training camp. Alvin Kamara's future is up in the air, but they got Kendre Miller now, and they got some, Jamal Williams. He's going to get you, he'll squeak out 6 wins, and then your offense and defense are going to have to get you the other 4 or 5, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a solid guy. I've grabbed him where I could, sold him where I could also.
Well, that's our top 24. That's my top 24 quarterbacks, and thank you for providing for analysis on that. So that's the list right up there for you. I hope you enjoyed the graphic. I really tried this week. I was like, all right, I'm gonna start getting graphics up for the people so they can see the rankings and everything like that as a totality aspect of it. So enjoy for the people who are watching on YouTube. If you wouldn't mind giving a like, subscribe, rating on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, I really appreciate it. I was a little disappointed that your son went. I was enjoying his analysis. He went to nap time, it appeared. I was really wanting to hear his analysis on Aaron Rodgers, some of the back end guys here, Jared Goff and Geno Smith, but we'll look forward to that the next time.
I was gonna say, if you have me on again, I'll make sure he naps for the first half, and then
we'll come in for the latter half. We'll end the show strong at that point. I like it. I like it, my friend. You got anything coming up that you want to tell the people that you're working on? Anything like that? Any shout outs?
So I'm relatively new to all this. I've been in Dynasty. I've been in fantasy for about 9 years, and in Dynasty for about 3. Got a few articles I'm working on for at FF Fantasy Face Off, and I'll be posting things as I can. Obviously, being a new dad, full-time job, like us all, it's time is of the essence. But no, I'll keep everybody posted as I'm putting out content.
Yeah, he's a little busier than me. He's got a kid, so you might not see him, writing 4 or 5 crazy articles a week like I do or something like that. But the content quality is amazing. So you'll see him on the Face Off Sports Network, and you will definitely be seeing him on these podcasts that I do bi-weekly, tri-weekly, whatever you want to say. So you can catch me on the Face Off Sports Network, the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, the Right Way Sports Network, Player Profiler, all those places. So thank you so much for joining us, everybody, and have a great rest of your Saturday. Jamie, I always love you, my friend. Take it easy and have a great weekend. I will be back tomorrow talking running backs too. Take it easy, my friend.